I'm Coach Kearns. Welcome to my reading nook. So glad you're here. I was just about to sit down and read some passages from one of my favorite novels, To Kill A Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Gotta be very careful reading this book though, because it's a banned book. People don't want us to read it. The ideas of racism and violence are just too much and they make people uncomfortable, so they want to take that away. What they don't realize is they're also taking away the themes of acceptance and loving your neighbor that this author is trying to put forth. So let's dive in and check out some of these passages. First one comes from chapter 12. We get to experience racism from a different perspective, from the perspective of our main character, a young white girl who's taken to an all-black church. Lula stopped, but she said, "You ain't got no business bringing white children here. They got their church, and we got ours. It is our church, ain't it, Miss Cal?" Calpurnia said, "It's the same God, ain't it?" Jem said, "Let's go home, Cal. They don't want us here." I agreed. They did not want us here. I sensed, rather than saw, that we were being advanced upon. They seemed to be drawing closer to us, but when I looked up at Calpurnia, there was amusement in her eyes. When I looked down the pathway again, Lula was gone. In her place was a solid mass of colored people. One of them stepped from the crowd. It was Zebo, the garbage collector. "Mr. Jem," he said, "we're mighty glad to have you all here. Don't pay no attention to Lula. She's contentious because Reverend Sykes threatened to church her. She's a trouble from way back, got fancy ideas and haughty ways. We're mighty glad to have you all here." So even though in that passage we do get that racism, we see some hate being shared in a place of worship, we also have that kind voice that reaches out and tries to bring everyone together. Our second passage also comes from chapter 12, and it's about finding your voice and learning how to accept people or to just walk away. Calpurnia tilted her hat and scratched her head, then pressed her hat down carefully over her ears. "It's right hard to say," she said. "Suppose you and Scout talk colored folks talk at home. It'd be out of place, wouldn't it? Now what if I talked white folks talk at church with my neighbors? They'd think I was putting on airs to beat Moses." "But Cal, you know better," I said. "It's not necessary to tell all you know. It's not ladylike. In the second place, folks don't like to have somebody around knowing more than they do. It aggravates them. You're not going to change any of them by talking right. They've got to want to learn themselves. And when they don't want to learn, there's nothing you can do but keep your mouth shut or talk their language." So that's about how you can't change everyone, but you can do your best to not make a situation worse by just fitting in or walking away. The final passage comes towards the end of the book, and I believe it's one of the most powerful in the novel. It's Atticus talking to his son and daughter about the unfair treatment from white people to people of other races. And what he says really sticks with you as a reader. He says he beat his fist softly on his knee. "You just can't convict a man on evidence like that. You can't. You couldn't, but they could, and they did. The older you grow, the more of it you'll see. The one place where a man ought to get a square deal is in a courtroom, be he any color of the rainbow. But people have a way of carrying their resentments right into a jury box. As you grow older, you'll see white men cheat black men every day of your life. But let me tell you something, and don't you forget it. Whenever a white man does that to a black man, no matter who he is, how rich he is, or how fine a family he comes from, that white man is trash." Atticus was speaking so quietly, his last word crashed on our ears. I looked up and his face was vehement. There's nothing more sickening to me than a low-grade white man who will take advantage of a black man's ignorance. Don't fool yourselves. It's all adding up, and one of those days we're going to pay the bill for it. I just hope it's not in you children's time. So there we see a really powerful message from a first-hand account of racism in a courtroom and an unfair trial. And overall, this book does make people uncomfortable, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be banned. Being uncomfortable is part of life, and this book teaches us that even in uncomfortable situations, you can find comfort and acceptance and in being yourself and loving your neighbor. Thanks for joining me in my reading nook today. I hope you will all come back and visit soon.